It's time for the latest update on the TT120 project. I've come down to Market Deeping Club and they've given me a cup of tea. So while I drink my tea, I'm going to hand over to the guys to give you an update and tell you how everything is getting on.
Phil, welcome back to Market Deeping Model Railway Club. As you can see, we moved on with a TT layout. Just for those that didn't see the earlier videos, we were asked to build a TT 120 layout using the new Hornby system. BRM asked us to think outside the box and use some techniques based on TT being tabletop to make it fairly light and easy to work with. So we came up with the ideas of using a styrofoam type materials. In order to do that, and this is purely for exhibition purposes, we need to make several boxes which we have built a stereo and stored it in, and that is so easy to transport around. It's firm. But for those using it at home, you do not need to use this sort of structure. You just run a tape around the outside and it's fairly light. So that is where the ideas came from. The phases that we're going through at the moment is we have now started doing the track laying, and we finished with the fiddle yard. And then moving around, we have started the curving of the boards, and you can see we have various photographs here of the coastline. Now I will say at this point it's based upon the line between Dawlish and Teignmouth, going from Parsons Rock through into Teignmouth itself, and you can see we've got the rock at one end and we've got the Teignmouth entrance at the other end. We have quite a team working on this now, so if we can start off working our way around here, and if we look at the part of the sea wall, and if I could hand over to Brian, who's doing the seawall. So if you want to explain, Brian, on the pieces that you made, and you can see how very close it is to the actual.
I've been trying various sort of different ways of making this. I started off with something called Foamex, and that takes a nice brick in. You can inscribe the brick into the Foamex quite easily. But the issue arose because you've got this sort of curve that way, and you've also got the curve to take the sea when it comes in. Getting that double curve just proved impossible. So I came up with the idea of using this foam, which I just happen to have a board of, and it's not the same sort of foam as I think it's Celotex that we're using on the baseboard. This is a foam called XPS foam. It's a sort of insulation foam, and it cuts well, it sands well, and it's very, very easy to work. So basically all I've done, I've used this one, I've cut out the shape based on the coastline that I was given there of the path, and glued a thin piece, this was cut at home, onto the back, and then pinned that on while the PVA was setting, using these sort of pins which just literally stick in. You don't want one of those in your pocket. So that all holds together while the glue's drying, and then once that's all set, then I basically gave it a coat of PVA over the top, just to give the Artex that I've used something to grip on. And then while the Artex was still damp, I've just scribed some brick into that, and you can see then I've started working on the paintwork to give me an idea of colours based on the pictures that we've got.
So actually, this is. I mean, you can really copy the stones. I think as we can see here, you can see the slanting brickwork, for example, which you can't do any other way.
That's
can you?
Correct.
So
yeah.
you've had to scribe. It's quite a length to scribe.
Yeah.
I mean, it must be
and
about.
Also the steps on that were 3D printed, but that's not going to get into the final cut, I'm afraid, because we are going to build the seawalls without the ramps. That's going to be built in.
Oh yes. When we move on to the waterman, he's going to. There's further plans, isn't there?
Yeah.
And those pins, I think, are they for model aircraft use or something like that, for pinning? Because they use a lot of that sort of technology. Yeah.
Absolutely. I've done some model aircraft in my time, so.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, brilliant. So it's definite progress there. Okay, where are we next?
Right, the next actually is coming on to the the element of making the sea itself. Now, Dash, who is working on the sea, has come up with various ideas, and some are going to be novel. And you'll see these at Doncaster. And don't be surprised when you come around and see the layout, it'll have changed during the day, and Dash will explain why.
Yes, we thought since we have an essentially static layout without shunting movements and trains running past, we've got to maintain some sort of morning and afternoon cut-off so that people will come back and look at it. So the idea is we're going to have removable cartridges that butt up against the sea wall, and effectively we can swap these out between a calm low tide and a very stormy high tide. So for the low tide, effectively we're going to be using self-leveling resin compounds. So this is from something bought on Amazon, but there's Deluxe Materials do a variation on this with their solid water, etc. And the individual wave crests and things like that will be done very gently with a wave material using a fixable resin that hardens later. For the high tide, we're going to get a bit more vigorous. So we're going to use car repair filler, of all things, as a skin on top of hardboard. And do it because this filler will be able to be sculpted into crests that will remain in position. And then for the spume and splashes and the actual hits against the sea wall, we're going to be using a combination of the normal flat self-leveling stuff to give it a sheen where that's required and a bit of depth, combined with a spume that we sculpt using fiberglass, and then out hopefully to individual droplets and things like that using clear resins as a finisher. So it's a challenge.
But very much a work in progress, and check out future updates on this project to see how it gets on, because I've certainly never heard of some of these techniques, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how they come out.
There's method to the madness, we hope.
And will you be producing a tide table for the for exhibitions so that everyone knows when they shouldn't go on the beach? Brilliant.
Raise the red flag.
I think so. Right, and
so as you can see there from Dash, we are thinking outside the box, coming up with new ideas and new techniques, and these are going to be on future videos. One of the areas that we looked at, we actually went down there and we took photographs of the route. So we have, as you can see, we have got quite detailed photographs to work to. And one of the areas that has given us a lot of thought, and we have a lot of experience on rock building, is with Alan and John, and they have come up with ideas. And if I could hand over to Alan and to John, they will explain their techniques and how they're going to start building the rock face, which is a major feature of the layout.
I think you've seen this particular test piece before. It's simply polystyrene layers covered with sculptor mould, which I think is a wonderful material, and various scatter materials. This is very much a test piece. We've since decided that we need to have it rather higher, although in fact we can't get it too high because otherwise transport's going to be extremely difficult.
I was going to say,
balance.
Because that is actually, now you put that on there, you can really see how it's going to change the layout, just putting the height on it, isn't it?
Yes.
And yet you're going to go higher still.
Yes, but not too high.
Right.
Because it's going to be impossible. The other decision we have to make is to whether or not we restrict the cliffs to the front boards, or whether we come further back. And that's quite an important one, because if we manage to keep everything up to the front board, we can then sandwich these backboards over it for transport. Once we start coming onto the backboard, then I think we have to think in terms of removable cliffs, which wouldn't be impossible, but of course there's always the possibility of damage.
And it's more work setting up and pulling down at the end of the show, which means when you get there, it's like it takes you longer to put the layout up, so you can't get around the second-hand stores and get a cup of tea quite so quickly.
Exactly. We have one great advantage, of course, and the fact that John actually worked on the railway on this particular bit of line, so he's able to say whether he thinks the cliffs look right.
Excellent. Okay.
So, as we said there, we're moving on from there. Going now, one of the problems that we had at the beginning was how to fix the track to the styrene boards. Now that did present a problem. We did several test pieces, and on that we had a team working. We had Mick, Richard, and Aileen, and they have they have done most of all the track laying. So you can see the test piece that we have, and Mick will explain through what we've done.
Using this material, we found that pinning track down was no good. The pins would just come straight out. So we adapted a place where we put thin strips of plywood down so that they would hold the pin, and so that the track didn't dip between, we put cork in between. Finally, we put another piece of cork on the top, and we can make a ballast shoulder over it, lay the track, and then the ballast in. So we worked on this test piece until we were satisfied that it would be okay. When it comes to the ballast, the colour of the ballast, there's been a lot of question as to which we use. We've used a very fine ballast now and more of the red so that it fits in. So we will start ballasting fairly soon on the bit of track that we've just laid slightly down there. That's more or less the curve that it will take. That's the width between. We hope that looks about right. Once it's ballast, then the scenery guys can come on, build the wall right up to it, and the cliffs on the other side.
We built the fiddle yard. So if you want to do a shot of the fiddle yard, which is we have the 6 lanes now on the fiddle yard, and probably Mick again can explain how he's.
Yeah.
The difficulty is trying to bring the curves in to get the full length of a HST.
That was the difficulty. The curves are a bit more acute than I would like, but at least we will be able to get a full length HST in at the time. It would have been good to be able to have points on a curve, but Pico are only making them straight.
Yes, I think this is part of the problem, isn't it? We're very early in the world of TT,
Yeah.
and of course, stuff that in 5 years' time might be available isn't available right now.
No. I mean, for example, that one would be perfect on a point on a curve, but having to use straight ones, it's not exactly how I would like it, but at least things get round it. It's not the tightest of radius. We did have a track setter somewhere, so most things will go round it, I'm pretty sure.
Right, fingers crossed, looking good then.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the areas that we looked at was trying to find accessories to go with it, and this was the tunnel mouth which we had down at Parsons Rock, and we approached yourselves, and you managed to find a supplier which have very kindly made us.
Brilliant. It's the joy of 3D printing, isn't it?
There's
a lot of 1/120 stuff coming out in 3D printing.
And I understand now that this is available on the market, so anyone who wants a tunnel mount, even though it's based on Parsons Rock, one is available. So that's the update at the moment. So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you again in a few weeks' time when we will have the next sections available. So we will continue and look forward to seeing you then.
Right, keep an eye on World of Railways TV and our YouTube channel, and there will be more updates coming soon.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.